The bustling city of New York stretched before Logan Carter, the golden hues of the setting sun casting a warm glow over the skyline. From the expansive floor-to-ceiling windows of his office on the 40th floor, Logan took in the view, his eyes scanning the towering structures that defined the city, a city he had helped shape. At 42, Logan epitomized success. His neatly trimmed silver hair hinted at wisdom beyond his years, his tailored suit spoke of precision and power, and the quiet confidence in his posture revealed a man in control of his world. Yet, for all his accomplishments, Logan felt an emptiness that even the grandest skyscrapers couldn't fill. His real estate empire was a testament to decades of ambition and tireless work, but it came at a cost that he was only now beginning to understand. As the late afternoon light began to dim, Logan checked his watch and allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. It was time to go home, where his true treasure awaited. His wife, Sophia, and their 8-year-old son, Ethan. The quiet hum of the elevator ushered him down to the lobby, where his driver, Daniel, stood waiting by the sleek, black car. "Home, sir?" Daniel asked, holding the door open. Logan nodded, loosening his tie as he settled into the back seat. "Yes, Daniel. Let's go home." The car merged into the congested streets of Manhattan, weaving through a symphony of horns and hurried pedestrians. But Logan hardly noticed. His mind was already in another place, picturing Ethan's bright, curious eyes lighting up when he walked through the door and Sophia's warm smile as she greeted him. These moments had become his solace, a fleeting escape from the relentless demands of his empire. As the city gave way to the quieter, tree-lined streets of the Upper East Side, Logan found himself gazing out the window, the reflection of his face superimposed on the city lights. He couldn't shake the thought that, while he had built a city of steel and glass, he had been neglecting the very foundation of his life, his family. Tonight, he told himself, would be different. He would be fully present. No emails, no calls. Just Ethan and Sophia. Yet, as the car pulled into the driveway of his stately brownstone, an unfamiliar stillness greeted him. The lights were on, but the house felt quiet, too quiet. Logan stepped inside, calling out, "Sophia? Ethan?" His voice echoed down the polished wood corridors, but no answer came. His brow furrowed as he moved toward the living room, where a folded note rested on the coffee table. The handwriting was unmistakable, Sophia's elegant script. His heart tightened as he read the words. "Logan, Ethan wasn't feeling well. I've taken him to the hospital for some tests. Don't worry, it's likely nothing serious. I'll call you as soon as I can. Love, Sophia." Logan stood frozen for a moment, the note trembling in his hands. The world around him blurred, the weight of guilt and worry pressing down like never before. In that instant, he realized how much he had taken for granted, the fleeting moments and everyday joys. Without thinking, he grabbed his keys and headed for the car, driven by a singular thought. He needed to be there for his family, now more than ever. The streets of New York, once a backdrop to his triumphs, now felt like an obstacle course, each red light and honking horn a reminder of his helplessness. As he raced toward the hospital, a thought gnawed at him. What if he had already lost too much? The hospital loomed ahead, a stark white building illuminated by harsh fluorescent lights. Logan parked haphazardly, barely registering the irritated honks behind him, and sprinted toward the entrance. The sliding doors parted, revealing a sterile world of rushing nurses, muffled cries, and the faint smell of disinfectant. Logan's chest tightened as he approached the reception desk. "I'm looking for my wife, Sophia Carter, and my son, Ethan," he said, his voice calm despite the turmoil. The receptionist glanced up, recognition flashing across her face. "Mr. Carter," she said politely, "your wife and son are in room 208. The doctor is currently with them." Logan offered a terse nod and strode toward the elevators. The ride to the second floor felt agonizingly slow, each ding marking the seconds stretching unbearably. As the doors finally slid open, he hurried down the hallway, his footsteps echoing in the silent corridor. Outside room 208, he paused, drawing in a steadying breath. When he stepped inside, relief washed over him. Sophia sat beside the hospital bed, gently stroking Ethan's hair. The boy, though pale, offered a weak smile when he saw Logan. "Dad," Ethan croaked, his voice barely above a whisper yet full of warmth. Logan crossed the room in 2 strides, crouching beside the bed and taking Ethan's tiny hand. "Hey, champ," he said, forcing a smile. "How are you feeling?" "I'm okay," Ethan replied bravely, though the flush of fever was evident on his cheeks. "The doctor says it's just a viral infection," Sophia interjected, soothing but laced with exhaustion. "They're running some tests to be sure, but it doesn't seem serious." Logan nodded, his throat tightening as he realized how much he had neglected these moments, genuinely being there for his family. He brushed a hand through Ethan's hair. "You're going to be fine, buddy. We'll get through this together." A light knock on the door interrupted the moment as a middle-aged doctor entered, his expression reassuring. "Good evening, Mr. Carter. I'm Dr. Peterson." He introduced himself, extending a hand. Logan stood and shook it firmly. "How's my son?" The doctor smiled. "Ethan has a common viral fever. We've taken some blood work just to rule out anything more serious, but I'm confident he'll recover with a few days of rest, fluids, and some medication." Logan exhaled deeply, a wave of relief coursing through him. "Thank you, doctor. We'll discharge him tonight," Dr. Peterson added, scribbling on a clipboard. "Your wife can handle the paperwork at the front desk." As the doctor left, Logan returned to Sophia, pulling her into a hug. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I should have been here sooner." Sophia rested her head against his chest, her voice soft. "You're here now. That's what matters." While Sophia stepped out to finalize the discharge, Logan sat with Ethan, watching the boy drift into a peaceful sleep. In the dim light of the hospital room, Logan felt something shift within him. His son's tiny hand resting in his own felt like an anchor, grounding him in a way his skyscrapers never could. He realized that for all his business triumphs, he had been chasing the wrong kind of legacy. Ethan and Sophia were his true empire. The journey home was quiet. The hum of the car engine was the only sound as Ethan dozed in the back seat. Sophia held Logan's free hand, her thumb tracing gentle circles over his knuckles. He glanced at her, marveling at the strength and grace she always seemed to carry. How had he let himself drift so far from this? As they pulled into the driveway, Logan carried Ethan inside, tucking him into his bed. The boy stirred slightly, his lips curling into a small smile. "Thanks, Dad," he murmured sleepily. Logan kissed his forehead, a lump rising in his throat. Sophia leaned against the doorframe in the hallway, watching him with an affectionate gaze. "He adores you, you know," she said quietly. Logan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I've spent so much time buried in work, Sophia. I've missed so much. I don't want to be that kind of father anymore." Sophia stepped closer, taking his hands in hers. "It's not too late, Logan. You can choose what kind of father you want to be." Her words resonated deeply, and that night, as Logan lay awake beside her, his mind raced with thoughts of the future. He made a silent promise to himself. Things would change. The following day, Logan woke before dawn, an unusual sense of purpose driving him. He slipped out of bed and into the kitchen, determined to make breakfast for his family, something he hadn't done in years. The smell of fresh coffee and scrambled eggs filled the house, rousing Sophia and Ethan from their sleep. Sophia laughed as she entered the kitchen, still in her robe. "Is this a dream?" "If it is," Logan replied, smiling as he set the table, "I hope we never wake up." Ethan shuffled in, his pajamas slightly rumpled, but his face lit up at the sight of the breakfast spread. "Dad, you made this?" "Of course," Logan said, ruffling his son's hair. "A Carter family breakfast to kickstart our new routine." Logan felt a warmth he hadn't known in years as they ate together. He listened attentively as Ethan talked about his favorite book, savoring every word. It was a moment so ordinary yet extraordinary in its simplicity. Later that day, Logan made another decision. "Sophia," he said, sitting beside her on the couch, "I'm going to take some time off work. Maybe we could plan a family trip, a beach, somewhere quiet. What do you think?" Sophia's eyes widened in surprise. "Logan, are you sure? What about the company?" "I'll delegate," he said firmly. Daniel can handle things while I'm away. I need this. I need you and Ethan more than I need another deal. Sophia smiled. Her eyes misting as she leaned in to kiss him. Then let's make it happen. At that moment, Logan felt a weight lift off his shoulders. For the first time in years, he chose his family over his empire, and it felt like the most outstanding achievement of his life. But fate had other plans. The following week, Logan followed through on his promise. He informed Daniel, his right-hand man at Carter Real Estate, of his decision to take a leave of absence. The announcement shocked the office. Logan Carter, the tireless titan of industry, was stepping back. Daniel voiced concerns about upcoming investor meetings, but Logan dismissed them. I trust you to handle it, he said firmly. Family comes first. After weeks of anticipation, the Carters piled into the family SUV that evening, heading to a nearby beach town for their first vacation in years. Ethan sat in the back seat, chatting animatedly about everything he wanted to do: building sandcastles, swimming in the ocean, collecting seashells. Logan stole glances at Sophia, her smile reflecting the warmth of his own. They felt like a family without distractions for the first time in years. The streets were quiet as they left the city, the golden hour casting long shadows over the road. Logan turned on Ethan's favorite playlist, and the boy began singing along, his Stina voice filling the car with joy. Sophia reached over, intertwining her fingers with Logan's, a silent acknowledgement of their progress. Then, everything changed in an instant. Out of nowhere, a truck barreled through an intersection, running a red light at high speed. Logan's instincts kicked in as he swerved sharply, trying to avoid the oncoming vehicle. The screech of tires, the deafening crunch of metal, and Ethan's frightened scream were the last things Logan remembered before everything went black. When Logan regained consciousness, he was surrounded by blinding white lights and the sterile hum of a hospital room. Pain radiated through his body, but it was nothing compared to the agony of not seeing Sophia or Ethan. Panic surged through him. A nurse entered the room, her expression a mixture of professionalism and pity. "Mr. Carter," she said softly, "you're awake? Please, don't try to move. The doctor will be here shortly." "My wife," Logan rasped, his throat dry. "My son, where are they?" The nurse hesitated, avoiding his gaze. "The doctor will explain everything." "No," Logan said, his voice rising. "Tell me where they are." Her silence was deafening. Logan's heart sank, his worst fears beginning to take shape. He closed his eyes, willing the moment to be a nightmare he could wake from. But when the doctor finally arrived, his grave expression confirmed Logan's worst fears. Sophia was gone, killed on impact. Ethan had survived but was critically injured and in another part of the hospital. Logan's world crumbled. The promises he had made to his family, the plans for a fresh start, they now felt like cruel jokes. The man who had built an empire, who prided himself on control and precision, was powerless. The pain of losing Sophia felt unbearable, and the thought of possibly losing Ethan, too, was more than he could endure. The days that followed were a blur of pain, guilt, and despair. Logan refused to leave the hospital, insisting on staying by Ethan's side. The boy was in the pediatric intensive care unit, his small frame dwarfed by the machines keeping him alive. Logan spent hours by his bedside, holding his son's hand, whispering words of encouragement and begging him to fight. One night, the attending pediatrician entered as Logan sat slumped in the chair beside Ethan's bed. Dr. Harper was a calm, empathetic woman who had a way of speaking that soothed even the most anxious parents. She gently explained Ethan's condition: a head injury, fractured ribs, and internal bruising. He was stable, but recovery would be slow and uncertain. "Mr. Carter," she said, steady but kind, "Ethan is a fighter. I've seen children come through worse. But he needs your strength, your presence. Talk to him. Remind him why he needs to wake up." Logan nodded, gripping Ethan's hand tighter. As the doctor left, he leaned closer to his son, his voice trembling with emotion. "Ethan, it's Dad. I need you to hear me, champ. I need you to fight. I know you're strong, stronger than I've ever been. You promised me we'd build sandcastles on the beach, remember? We're going to do that, buddy. You, me, and Mom." She's watching over us now. As the days turned into weeks, Ethan began to show signs of improvement. His fingers twitched, and eventually, his eyes fluttered open. Logan was at his side when it happened, his heart leaping joyfully. "Ethan," he said, tears streaming down his face. "You're awake." Ethan blinked slowly, his gaze unfocused but alive. "Dad?" he croaked, his voice weak but unmistakably his. "I'm here, champ. I'm right here." The road to recovery was arduous. Physical therapy sessions, follow-ups with specialists, and the lingering trauma of the accident weighed heavily on both father and son. Yet, through it all, Logan found a strength he didn't know he had. He devoted himself entirely to Ethan, attending every appointment, cheering him on through every small victory, and comforting him through every setback. One evening, as Logan helped Ethan practice walking with crutches, the boy looked up at him with a determined expression. "Dad, I'm going to get better. For Mom." Logan knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "And I'm going to be right here with you every step of the way. For both of us." Months passed as Logan and Ethan adjusted to life without Sophia. The mansion that once echoed with her laughter now felt oppressively silent. Logan poured himself into Ethan's recovery, becoming both a father and a caretaker. Yet, despite their growing bond, a shadow of grief lingered in every corner of their lives. One rainy afternoon, a letter caught his eye as Logan sorted through a pile of unopened mail on the kitchen table. It was from St. Mary's Orphanage, a charity Sophia had passionately supported. The letter described the orphanage's financial struggles, warning that they might be forced to close without immediate donations. Logan stared at the letter, its words stirring something inside him. He could picture Sophia's smile as she spoke about the children she had met there and her determination to help them find better lives. For the first time in months, Logan felt a flicker of purpose. If he couldn't bring Sophia back, perhaps he could honor her memory by supporting what she cared about most. That weekend, Logan and Ethan visited the orphanage. Ethan, still recovering, leaned on his crutches as they entered the modest, aging building. Sister Amelia, the head of the orphanage, greeted them warmly. Her lined face softened as she saw Ethan, and her kind eyes reflected a shared understanding of loss. "Mr. Carter," Sister Amelia said, leading them through the corridors, "I can't tell you how much it means to us that you're here. Sophia was such a blessing to us all." As they toured the orphanage, Logan noticed the peeling paint, the cracked tiles, and the sparse furnishings. Despite the building's condition, the sound of children's laughter filled the air, bringing a bittersweet smile to Ethan's face. Logan's gaze was drawn to a boy playing alone near a crumbling wall in a small courtyard. His shaggy brown hair fell into his eyes as he focused intently on stacking blocks into what appeared to be a castle. "Who's that?" Logan asked softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "That's Matthew," Sister Amelia replied, her tone gentle. "He's been with us for about a year now. We don't know much about his past. He was left at our doorstep late one night. He's a quiet boy, but there's a spark in him. He loves to build things." Logan felt a pang in his chest as he watched Matthew. Something eerily familiar about the boy's determined expression was the way his hands moved with precision. Unable to resist, Logan approached him. "Hey there," Logan said, crouching to the boy's level. "What are you building?" Matthew glanced up, his wide brown eyes meeting Logan's. For a moment, the world seemed to pause. "It's a castle," the boy said softly, "to keep everyone safe." Logan's breath caught. The words, so simple and innocent, carried a weight he couldn't explain. "That's a strong castle," Logan said, his voice thick. "Mind if I help?" Matthew hesitated before nodding, handing Logan a block. As they built together, Logan felt a connection forming that went beyond words. Ethan watched from a distance, a curious look on his face. That night, back at the mansion, Logan couldn't shake the image of Matthew. The boy's demeanor, his features, something about him that tugged at Logan's heart in a way he hadn't felt since the accident. Unable to sleep, Logan began digging through old family photos, comparing them to the boy he had met. The resemblance to Ethan was undeniable. Driven by a gnawing suspicion, Logan called Daniel the following day. "I need you to hire the best private investigator you can find," Logan said, his tone leaving no room for argument. I need to know everything about a boy named Matthew at St. Mary's Orphanage. Within days, Logan sat across from Mark Santos, a seasoned investigator known for discretion. Logan handed him a photo of Matthew, along with all the information Sister Amelia had shared. I need to know where he came from, Logan said, and if there's any connection to my family. Mark nodded, his expression serious. I'll look into it, Mr. Carter, but I need you to be prepared. Investigations like this can uncover painful truths. Logan didn't flinch. Do whatever it takes. Weeks passed, and Logan immersed himself in Ethan's recovery and quiet visits to the orphanage. The feeling grew stronger each time he saw Matthew. This boy was more than a stranger. Ethan, too, began warming to Matthew, often joining him in play during their visits. One crisp autumn morning, Mark called. Mr. Carter, I have information, he said. We need to meet immediately. Logan's hands trembled as he ended the call. The investigator handed him a file when he arrived at Mark's office. Inside were hospital records, legal documents, and a single photo of a toddler, Matthew. Logan's breath hitched as he read the first line. Male child, approximately 3 years old, found at the scene of an accident. Mark's voice broke the silence. Mr. Carter, Matthew isn't just any boy. He's your son. Logan's heart stopped. That's impossible, he whispered. Ethan survived the accident. Sophia, Mark nodded grimly. There was a mix-up at the hospital. Matthew was taken to another facility due to the severity of his injuries. Somewhere along the line, his identity was lost, and he was placed in the foster system. The DNA test confirms it. Matthew is Ethan's twin. Tears streamed down Logan's face as the truth sank in. He had spent months grieving for Sophia, only to discover that a piece of her, another son, had survived. What happens now? Logan asked, his voice breaking. Mark placed a hand on his shoulder. That's up to you. But remember, to Matthew, you're just Mr. Carter. Revealing this too quickly could overwhelm him. Logan sat in Ethan's room that night, watching his son sleep. Your brother is alive, he whispered to the quiet room. And I'll bring him home. Both of you deserve to grow up together. Logan spent the next week grappling with the enormity of the revelation. Every instinct screamed to bring Matthew home immediately, to reunite him with Ethan and rebuild their fractured family. But Mark's cautionary words echoed in his mind. Revealing this too quickly could overwhelm him. After consulting with a child psychologist, Dr. Linda Harper, Logan devised a careful plan. The first step was to spend more time at the orphanage, strengthening his bond with Matthew before introducing Ethan. Dr. Harper emphasized the importance of trust, patience, and small steps. During his visits, Logan found himself captivated by Matthew's quiet resilience. The boy's love for building things mirrored his passion for architecture, a connection that deepened Logan's belief in their shared bond. Ethan, too, noticed the growing relationship. Dad, he asked one evening, why do we visit Matthew so much? Do you want to adopt him? Logan hesitated. He knelt before Ethan, placing a hand on his shoulder. Ethan, there's something special about Matthew. I can't explain it yet, but he belongs with us. Would you be okay if he became part of our family? Ethan's face brightened. I like Matthew. He's fun. I think Mom would have wanted us to help him. Logan hugged his son tightly, overwhelmed by Ethan's maturity. You're right, champ. Mom would have wanted this. Logan arranged for Matthew to spend the day at their home the following weekend. When the boy arrived, his wide eyes darted around the mansion, equal parts awe and apprehension. Logan and Ethan worked together to make him feel at ease. They played games, explored the garden, and built an elaborate Lego castle. Fogan saw Matthew laugh freely for the first time, his guarded demeanor melting away. Sogan tucked Ethan into bed. That evening, his son whispered, Dad, I think Matthew's like me. He feels safe here. Logan's heart ached. He kissed Ethan's forehead and quietly promised, soon, you'll understand everything. The turning point came during one of Matthew's visits. Logan had introduced him to a family photo album, carefully selecting images of Sophia and Ethan at obvious ages. As they flipped through the pages together, Matthew paused, pointing at a picture of Ethan as a toddler. That boy. He looks like me. Logan swallowed hard, his pulse quickening. His name is Ethan, he said gently. He's my son. You remind me a lot of him when he was your age. Matthew studied the photo, his brow furrowing. I feel like I've seen him before. Logan placed a hand on Matthew's shoulder. Matthew, there's something significant I need to tell you. But only if you're ready to listen. The boy nodded hesitantly, his curiosity piqued. Logan took a deep breath, his voice steady but full of emotion. You're not just someone who reminds me of Ethan. You are Ethan's brother. You're my son. The words hung in the air, their weight pressing down on them. Matthew's wide eyes filled with confusion, then disbelief. What? That can't be true. I don't remember. Logan nodded, his tone calm. I know it's hard to believe. When the accident happened, you and Ethan were separated. The hospital didn't realize who you were, and you ended up at the orphanage. But I promise you, Matthew, it's the truth. Tears welled in Matthew's eyes, and his slight frame trembled. If I'm your son, why didn't you find me sooner? Why did you leave me? The raw pain in Matthew's voice cut through Logan like a knife. He knelt before the boy, his hands gently resting on Matthew's shoulders. I didn't know, Matthew. I thought you didn't survive the accident. It wasn't until recently that I learned the truth. And the moment I found out, I came for you. Matthew's tears spilled over, and Logan pulled him into a protective embrace. I'm so sorry, Logan whispered, his voice breaking. I'll never leave you again. You're home now. The following days were a whirlwind of emotion and adjustment. Logan introduced Matthew to Ethan, carefully explaining their shared history. Ethan's reaction was a mixture of shock and joy. I have a brother, he exclaimed, his eyes lighting up. That's the best thing ever. The bond between the boys proliferated. They spent hours playing, laughing, and sharing stories as if they were making up for lost time. Logan watched them with a heart full of gratitude and resolve. He was determined to give them both the life they deserved. But challenges arose. Matthew struggled with feelings of identity and belonging. Am I Matthew or Ethan's brother? He asked one evening, his voice small. I don't know who I'm supposed to be. Logan consulted Dr. Harper, who emphasized letting Matthew process his dual identity at his own pace. He's both, she said. A new name doesn't erase his experiences as Matthew, but connects him to the family he's rediscovering. Taking her advice, Logan created a unique space in Matthew's room, combining items from the orphanage with mementos from his earlier life as Ethan. Gradually, Matthew began to accept his place in the Carter family, though the journey was far from over. Logan initiated the adoption process, navigating the legal complexities with determination. He met resistance from some officials who questioned the emotional strain on Matthew, but Logan's unwavering commitment, along with Dr. Harper's and Sister Amelia's support, swayed the court. One bright morning, the judge officially approved the adoption. Ethan hugged Matthew tightly. You're my brother now. For real. I've always been your brother, Matthew replied with a shy smile. As they returned home, Logan couldn't help but feel a deep sense of fulfillment. Once a monument to loss, the mansion thrummed with life and hope. That evening, as he stood in the doorway of his son's shared room, watching them drift off to sleep, Logan whispered, Sophia, we're whole again. I hope you're proud. The weeks following the adoption were filled with small victories and poignant moments as the Carter family began their new life together. The once silent mansion now echoed with laughter, playful banter, and the occasional squabble between brothers, a sound Logan hadn't realized he missed until now. One evening, Logan gathered Ethan and Matthew in the living room for a family ritual that Sophia had cherished, sharing stories. He retrieved a dusty photo album from the bookshelf and placed it on the coffee table. Tonight, we're going to talk about your mom, Logan said, his voice warm but tinged with emotion. Matthew hesitated, his gaze flicking between Logan and the album. Would she have liked me? He asked quietly. Logan knelt in front of him, meeting his eyes. She would have loved you, Matthew. She always dreamed of raising you and Ethan together. She had so much love to give and would have been so proud of the strong, kind boy you've become. Ethan leaned over, patting Matthew on the back. Mom always said family is more than just being together. It's about being there for each other. Logan opened the album to a picture of Sophia cradling the twins as newborns. "This is the day you were both born," he said softly. "You were her everything." The boys leaned in, studying the photo. Matthew's expression shifted from sadness to quiet awe. "She looks happy," he murmured. "She was," Logan replied, his throat tightening. "And I know she's watching over us now, smiling because we're together." That night, as Logan tucked the boys into bed, Matthew clutched the small teddy bear he had brought from the orphanage, a symbol of his past. "Dad," he whispered, testing the word as if it were fragile. "Do you think Mom knows I'm home?" Logan leaned down, brushing a hand through Matthew's hair. "I know she does, and she's so happy you're here." As the Carter family settled into their new rhythm, Logan began focusing on fulfilling his promise to Sophia to continue her work with children in need. The Sarah Carter Foundation, named in her honor, became the centerpiece of this vision. Logan shared the idea with the boys over breakfast one sunny morning. "I want to transform the orphanage," he said, his tone full of purpose. "We'll rebuild it, create a place where kids feel safe, loved, and inspired. What do you think?" Ethan's face lit up. "Can we add a playground? And maybe a library?" Matthew, who had grown more confident, chimed in. "And a workshop for building stuff." Logan smiled, pride swelling in his chest. "We'll do all of that and more. This will be a place where every child feels like they belong." The family dove into the project together, visiting the orphanage regularly to consult with Sister Amelia and the children there. Logan hired a team of architects and designers, but Ethan and Matthew provided the heart of the plans. The boys suggested a mural wall where children could paint their dreams, and Matthew insisted on including a dedicated space for workshops. Construction began earnestly, and Logan became more fulfilled than ever in his professional life. The mansion, once his refuge of grief, became a hub of activity. Evenings were spent around the dining table, reviewing plans and dreaming of the future. One evening, as they reviewed the nearly finished designs, Ethan turned to his father. "Do you think we can invite other families to help?" Logan raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "Well," Ethan said thoughtfully, "maybe other families want to adopt kids too. We could make it a place where people meet their new families." Matthew nodded eagerly. "Yeah, like a family-making place." Logan's chest tightened at their thoughtfulness. "That's a beautiful idea. Let's make it happen." The grand opening of the new Sarah Carter Child and Family Center was a moment of profound joy. The once crumbling orphanage had been transformed into a vibrant, welcoming space. Bright murals adorned the walls, the library was stocked with books, and the playground sparkled under the afternoon sun. The family-making room, Ethan and Matthew's idea, stood proudly at the center of it all. The ceremony drew a crowd of supporters, from local community leaders to families who had once benefited from the orphanage's services. Sister Amelia's eyes, brimming with tears, approached Logan just before the ribbon cutting. "You've done something extraordinary, Mr. Carter," she said. "Sophia's legacy lives on through this place, and through you and your boys." Logan placed a hand over his heart, his voice thick with emotion. "It's not just my work. It's ours, mine, Ethan's, Matthew's. This is our family's promise to Sophia." Logan addressed the crowd as he stood on stage with Ethan and Matthew by his side. 3 years ago, I lost my wife, Sophia. She was the heart of our family, and her love continues to guide us daily. This center is more than a building. It symbolizes second chances, love, and the power of family. He paused, glancing at his sons. "Ethan and Matthew remind me daily that family is built not just through blood, but through our love. This center is dedicated to all the children still waiting for their families. To them, I say, you are not alone. You are loved." The crowd applauded as Logan handed the scissors to Ethan and Matthew. Together, the boys cut the ribbon, officially opening the center. As the sun set that evening, Logan watched Ethan and Matthew play on the new playground, their laughter echoing through the air. He felt a deep, unshakable peace for the first time in years. He knew the road ahead would have its challenges, but he also knew that, as a family, they could face anything. Later, as the boys settled into bed, Matthew held Logan's hand. "Dad," he said softly, "this is the happiest I've ever been." Thank you for finding me. Logan kissed his forehead, his voice full of love. Thank you for coming home. As he left their room, Logan looked through the window at the stars. A bright light seemed to wink at him, and he smiled, whispering, "We're doing it, Sophia. We're making your dreams come true." The weeks following the grand opening of the Sarah Carter Child and Family Center were marked by overwhelming support from the community. Families who had once felt hopeless began to find new beginnings, and the center quickly became a beacon of light. Logan, Ethan, and Matthew worked tirelessly, dedicating time and resources to ensure its success. But not everything was smooth sailing. As the center grew, so did the challenges. Local bureaucrats began raising questions about funding sources and zoning laws, casting shadows over the project's rapid success. Resentful of Logan's shift from business to philanthropy, a prominent developer launched a public smear campaign, accusing the center of being a vanity project. Logan faced these obstacles head-on, his determination unwavering. "This isn't just about us," he told Ethan and Matthew one evening as they sat around the dinner table. "It's about the children who rely on us. We can't let them down." Now thriving as an older brother, Ethan spoke up with wisdom beyond his years. "We've faced worse, Dad. We've already shown we can overcome anything." Matthew nodded in agreement. "We'll fight for this place, just like you fought for me." Logan smiled, pride swelling in his chest. His sons had become his most significant source of strength. Together, the Carter family mobilized. Logan reached out to allies in the real estate industry, securing pro bono legal representation. Ethan and Matthew organized a fundraiser at the center, inviting families to share their success stories. The event was a resounding success, highlighting the center's life-changing work. The backlash slowly faded, replaced by a groundswell of public support. Logan realized that adversity had only strengthened their resolve, solidifying the center's place in the community. As the dust settled, Logan began reflecting on the deeper purpose of their journey. One evening, as he stood in the mansion's garden, gazing at the stars, Ethan and Matthew joined him. "Dad," Ethan began, breaking the silence, "do you think Mom knew all this would happen? That we'd find Matthew, rebuild the center, and help so many people?" Logan smiled, pulling his sons close. "Your mom always believed in miracles, even when things seemed impossible. I think she's been guiding us this whole time." Matthew looked up at the sky, his voice soft but steady. "I didn't know her, but I feel like I do now. Through you, Ethan, and everything we've done together." Logan's heart swelled with emotion. "She's a part of all of us," he said, "and everything we're building is her legacy. A legacy of love." As time passed, the Carter family grew, not in size, but in impact. The Sarah Carter Child and Family Center became a national model, inspiring similar projects nationwide. Logan used his business acumen to expand the foundation's reach, creating scholarships, support programs, and mentorship opportunities for needy children and families. Now a teenager, Ethan began taking on a leadership role at the center. His empathy and insight made him a natural mentor for younger children, and he found his calling in social work. Matthew, meanwhile, discovered a passion for architecture, often sketching plans for new play areas and dreaming of becoming a builder like his father. One crisp autumn day, Logan gathered Ethan and Matthew in his study. "I've been thinking about the future," he began. "I want you both to be part of running the foundation someday. This is our family's mission now." Ethan's eyes lit up. "You mean we'd work together?" Logan nodded. "Together, always." Matthew smiled, his face full of determination. "I want to build more places like the center. Places where kids feel safe, just like I did." Logan placed a hand on each of their shoulders, his voice steady but full of emotion. "You're both going to do incredible things. Your mom would be so proud." Years later, on the anniversary of the center's opening, the Carter family hosted a celebration. Children and families from around the city filled the space, their laughter echoing through the halls. Logan watched from a distance as Ethan and Matthew took the stage, addressing the crowd with confidence and compassion. Ethan spoke first, his voice steady. "This center isn't just a building. It's a promise that no child is ever truly alone." Matthew followed, his tone reflective. "And it's proof that there's always hope even when life seems impossible." My family taught me that. Logan felt a profound sense of peace. As the crowd erupted in applause, he had found no purpose in the sinking indie and undeterred. Tianxi, a place of grief, the mansion now symbolized renewal and love. That night, as Logan gazed at the stars on the balcony, he felt a familiar warmth. "We did it, Sophia," he whispered. "Your legacy lives on. In them, us, and every child we help." From that moment on, the Carters embraced their future with open hearts, knowing their story was far from over. Together, they would continue to write a legacy of love, resilience, and endless possibilities.